welcome back to another episode of the Balanced Boss Mom podcast. I'm your host, Erika, and today we're diving into a concept that has been freeing for so many people lately. It's called the let them theory. Now, this theory is being told all over TikTok if you checked it out. It's also a book by Mel Robbins, and it's about releasing control, protecting your peace, and allowing people to show who you really are instead of forcing them to be who you want them to actually be. So I have an amazing guest today, and her name is Lindsay. And we're going to explore the concept of the let them theory, which this theory has been really, really cool to have. We're going to break it all down, talk about it, what it's really to set the let them theory in motherhood, relationships, and everyday life. So, Lindsay, welcome to the podcast.
Erika, thanks for having me. It's great to be here with you.
Thank you so much for being here this afternoon. I know it's been hectic on both ends, but I'm glad we're able to have a little bit of a conversation and talk about the let them theory in this concept of motherhood, relationships, and everyday life. So I want to get started, and I would love for you to share a little bit about yourself and what drew you to this conversation for today.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so excited to be here. I'm Lindsay. I am a wife, I am a mother, and I am a business owner. I'm a life and leadership coach. Just transitioned to my own business earlier this year. I spent over 20 years working in the human services field, working with a variety of different families and children, spending like over 10 years in leadership roles. And, it's a lot to balance that as a wife and mom, and that 9 to 5 grind. And so I see many happen to many moms. I was just getting burnt out. I was ready to really do my own thing, be my own boss, and bring that flexibility into my life. So earlier this year, I made the decision, I made the leap, and I am now my own boss and working to help other women leaders, high achieving women who may be professionals, business owners, entrepreneurs, helping them get unstuck and past that overwhelm to create the life that they want to live and a life that they love.
And that is such a cool intro. Like, you guys, when I tell you, when I first met Lindsay, it was the most incredible conversation that we had outside of talking about the podcast to just get to know each other. And one of the things I can say that the conversation was so much empowering once we led into like, oh my God, I watched the live you did on Facebook about the let them theory. And that's what led the conversation for today and the topic for discussion for today. So I'm so glad for the listeners to see this, but also hear this on an audio. So I'm ready to break down the let them theory. You guys, this book, I don't know if you guys can see it, but this book here, you can get it at Target, Walmart. You can get it on your Kindle if you have a Kindle. But this book, I've even listened to it on the audio on Audible for the book as well. And I found a little bit of the comparisons in between the audio version and the book version. And so the idea for me was really simple. Let's just talk about it. Let's talk about breaking down the let them theory, because that's what we're here to talk about today. So if someone was to exclude you or talk about or not invite you or act in a way that they don't like you, I would for sure say let them. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, this book has been a game changer for me. And I think for so many women that just hold on to that worrying about what other people think or what other people do or trying to control the circumstances in their life. And it was kind of just this aha moment to me that, really when it comes down to it, all you can control is yourself and your reaction. And it's not our job to control what other people do. Although sometimes what other people do, impacts us or frustrates us. And by learning to say, let them, you're releasing that feeling of having to control and you're really taking your power back. That was my key takeaway from the book.
And that's what I felt like when I first got the book. I was like, this book is going to rewire, I want to think, or re-identify what is to let them go. One of the theories that I liked about in this book was how Mel talked about how you set your alarm.
Yes.
And I started to do that, like where she was like, put the phone in the bathroom instead of having it right next to you. And I failed miserably. I just want to say, failed
Yeah.
miserably. But when I first thought about it, I was like, I get it. I see what she's talking about, where you would put that snooze on and want that extra 5 minutes all the time. And I like with the let them theory, it helps you stop trying to chase the control factor and trying to let yourself free. So my first question for you is, when did you first hear about this concept and what clicked for you?
Yeah. So I had been hearing about this concept for a while and seeing things, on Facebook or people getting like the let them tattoos. That's been a big thing. And
Oh.
at the beginning of 2025, I said, I had made a goal for myself to read at least one like self-help personal development book a month. And so in January of 25, I picked the let them theory and I said, okay, I keep hearing about this,
Mhm,
on Facebook, on YouTube, on different things, and I'm going to take the time to read this book. And it truly was a game changer. Earlier this year, I was still in my 9 to 5. I was still, working 40 plus hours a week and
mhm,
just in that major overwhelm and trying to control, everything that was going on around me, or getting frustrated, with my kids, getting frustrated with my husband, getting frustrated with coworkers,
mhm,
and reading this book and being able to kind of reframe situations and say, you know what, I'm going to let them. That is them. That is their thing. That is not
mhm,
my thing to control. All I can control is the way I'm going to respond, the way I'm going to think, the way I'm going to, approach life, approach the situation. And I mean, it was a great book to read in January. You think new year, you're gonna really get a fresh start. And I knew 25 was gonna be, a big year for me. I had been
mhm,
thinking about starting my own business, was really scared, nervous to do that. But, this book and being able to say, because I worried about what people would think,
mhm,
after so many years in my profession and in leadership, to, walk away from, a six-figure income to start my own thing, what people were going to think about me. And reading this book helped me think, let them think what they want to think. Like, this is about me and my family and my peace and what I want to do and bring to this life. So yeah.
And so I like that you said that, because this book has really brought something new that has kind of like you said, the aha moment. And so do you think moms especially struggle with the idea of letting go? I feel like they do, it so to speak, because when we're trying to, like I had a discussion earlier today about re-identifying yourself, it's kind of hard to let that go and re-identify. And I wish it was somewhere, I might have missed it, but somewhere in the book where it talks about for moms and how they can transition and let that go. Mel, if you hear this, I'm manifesting that you come onto my podcast because I want to hear your input on how moms can let it go. Can we manifest that? I want to manifest
Yes,
that.
let's manifest that because men can definitely relate and have impact from the let them theory too. It can be helpful. Women and moms are not. Although I will say, as a woman and as a mom, I think we have this added pressure that we put on ourselves to
Mm-hmm.
be perfect, to balance all the things, to balance the work, to balance the home, to, make sure that our kids are, polite and have good manners and are in all of the things. I've got kids in every sport under the sun, and, you add in all of the school activities, and it's a lot. And there's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
pressure to be perfect and all of that. But, I'm sure there's that pressure for the guys too and for the dads
Hmm.
too.
Yeah. And one of the craziest things is when I picked up the book and I read the book for the first time, it was a lot of things that just was like, okay, I don't have to answer the phone all the time. I can let them go to voicemail. And I'm so the type person. I feel like I'm kind of like a type A, but a type B kind of person as well, where one minute I want to people please and answer that phone. And then the next minute I'm just like, you gotta get some time to yourself and let them do it for themselves. Let them see it for themselves. You can't always be the one to rescue them. So in this book, what example did you use in your own life that helped you apply to the let them mindset?
I mean, so I think she gives a lot of good examples in the book about times when, friends maybe will plan an outing or do something without you. And you're like, oh my gosh, why are they not including me? Or,
Mm-hmm.
why didn't I get invited to this thing? And like letting that go. So I think that's a good example. But, for me, there's like three main key takeaways, and I talked about this in my coaching group on Facebook. But there's like three main takeaways that I had found that were really helpful to me. And
Mm-hmm.
the first one was just letting people be who they are, because we want to a lot of times change how people show up for us, or we have put expectations on other people about how they want to show up for us, whether that's our friends, sometimes
Mm-hmm.
that's our kids, sometimes that's our spouse or significant other. And
Right.
we spend so much energy trying to like fix situations or control the way people are going to show up for us. And those expectations, if they're not met, can cause so much stress. But with that little simple shift of taking a deep breath and saying, I'm going to let them be who they are, it can do wonders. You can do that with your children. Sometimes my kiddo will in the mornings, and I'm sure you've experienced this. I know you have a daughter pretty close to my daughter's age. My daughter's 9. In the morning, getting ready for school, she wants to wear something that I'm like, really? That doesn't match? Or,
That has
really?
happened to
Like, it's
me.
going to be, you know, like earlier this week, we're starting to get to fall in Ohio a little bit. So fall weather. And she
Mm-hmm.
wanted to, the high that day was going to be like 71, but it was only like 62 degrees in the morning when we were going to the bus stop, and she wanted to wear shorts. And I was like, go put some pants on. And so we started to get into this, battle, like this,
Mm-hmm.
you need to wear long pants. And finally, I was like, you know what? I'm going to just let her wear the
Let
shorts. I'm
her
going to take
learn.
that. I'm going to let her be her, and she can learn. And if she's cold, she'll figure it out. And so that's what we did. And that was freeing to me because it gave me my peace back in the morning, and that stress of worrying, because you start to think, well, what are the other parents at the bus stop going to think when it's 62 degrees and my kid's standing out there in shorts and a sweatshirt? And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, well, let them think what they want. This is a parenting moment, letting her learn a lesson, and not getting into the power struggle this morning.
That has happened to me more than words can count with the whole clothing thing. Because my daughter, she's 7 and she's in the second grade. And so I am trying to teach her that she can express herself through her feelings, but also when she's picking out something that doesn't match, I'm like, I picked out your clothes already. This is what you're wearing. And she's like, no, I'm not really feeling that. So I get that word, trying to let go a little bit of that control factor of, yeah, I picked out the clothes for you, but you want to pick out your own stuff. I'm getting to the point where now I'm just like, okay, she's getting older and I'm just going to have to let her learn as much as she
Wow.
can as she's getting older. And so for moms ourselves also have, or I don't want to say also have, but we want to have the control so much, like our kids' behaviors or their friendships, or how maybe the interactions with family members with the children, but sometimes we just have to let them. So how do you see this playing out in parenting?
Yeah, I think it plays out in parenting all the time. I think it is, that power struggle and letting go of that power struggle with your kids. Now, there's certain things that you're going to have to play the parent card. You're going to have to play the trump card, and say, sorry, this is the way it's going to go. But there's other things where, you learn, especially as a when you're a younger parent with younger kids, like think back to that toddler age. And, other moms, you'll hear moms saying to moms, or like my mom would say to me, you know, you got to learn, Lindsay, to pick your battles with your kids. And I mean, that's
I've
so
heard that.
true. And that's how that let them theory, I feel like, applies to parenting is you've got to, let them grow up, let them experience mistakes, let them do their thing, and it really it gives you back this sense of peace where you're like, my kid doesn't have to be perfect all the time. I don't have to be the perfect parent all the time. And in respect, and so yes, it's let them with the kids, but then it's also let them with the other moms in the drop off line, with the other
Hmm.
moms that are at sports games, and things like that, because I think we as women especially worry about so much about what other people think about us, or what are they going to think when my daughter's showing up, to the bus stop in shorts and it's 62 degrees out, or what are they
Hmm.
going to think, if whatever the thing might be. And so just letting that go and saying, I'm going to let them think what they want to think, be what they want to be. It gives you the power back to be able to be who you are and make the decisions that you need to make that are going to be best for you and for your kids and your family.
Yeah, I can totally agree. And I can see where the let them does play into that about letting them live and learn because they have to live to get those experiences. They have to live and to experience those things. And so let's switch it a little bit about relationships, about family and relationships and friendships. And even like you
Yeah.
stated, you transition from the 9 to 5. So I want to talk a little bit more about that. Where do you think women could apply the let them theory more with friendships or family or even the work angle, such as like a 9 to 5? I do a nine to, well, I do a 9 to 5 pretty much. But yeah, let's talk
Yeah.
about that.
Sure. So another strong point. So I told you I had like three main takeaways from the book. And the first
Hmm.
one was, around letting people be who they are. But the second one's really letting people react how they're going to react. And
Yeah.
this one is really about letting go of the fear of how people are going to respond when
Hmm.
you make a choice or a decision to do what's best for you and your family, because
Okay.
you can't control how other people are going to react. All you can control is your response. And so sometimes, we need to set a boundary in our life, and whether it is, I'm not going to be able to go to the PTA meeting, or I'm not going to be able to volunteer to run the concession stand this Saturday because I know I've had a really busy week at work, and
Hmm.
it's just not going to be something that's going to be good for my time. I need to protect my own mental health. But you worry about how are people going to react. Like, so I also have a high school freshman, and he's in football. And so, you think I mean, football moms are another kind of mom, all
Hmm.
coming together, and they're wonderful, wonderful group of women, like come together to do all of the feed the team stuff, to do, to man the concession stands and things like that.
Hmm.
And, some moms have the privilege to be able to stay at home and focus on that. And some are also working and got their other things going. And so,
Hmm.
sometimes you got to set a boundary and just say, I can't do everything. And it's hard because you let those expectations from the other parents, kind of weigh on you, or from your friends
Hmm.
kind of weigh on you, maybe an expectation, or like you get invited on a girls trip and maybe it's, I don't know, not financially in the cards for you and your family that year. Or
Hmm.
maybe it's just, it's not a good time. Or maybe you don't get invited on the girls trip and you really wanted to be invited on the girls trip and everybody else is going. And you've got to, instead of really getting in your feels about that and letting that bring you down, say, I'm going to let them do their thing, make their choice, and we'll kind of go from there. So it's a way to keep your peace
Hmm.
and to not go down kind of the mental wormhole of being upset and wondering why somebody did or didn't, you know, do whatever thing, but you can kind of reframe, recenter, and that helps you to be able to really live your best life.
I like how you put that, because coming from where you're saying the expectations, and I want to highlight that so much. We often seek the expectations to even seek validation within friendships and family and coworkers. And I think when, like you stated, when those expectations are set at a like a bar level and you don't meet that expectation and you learn that it's okay to fail, I feel that in a work setting, it should be less expectations and less control, more of kind of like a step back. I wish the let them theory was played out more in a work setting. I really do.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
in a work setting, you always hear the work life balance. And I talked about this in previous episodes that I feel like we need to delete the work life balance. Just delete it out of our vocabulary, because you have to think about it. If you're doing a 9 to 5 and you have that expectation to meet every need that is in that 9 to 5 and you don't meet that, then you're not benefiting anything from that, you know? And
Yeah.
so my
And let's
next
be
question.
real, those 9 to 5s are not just 9 to 5s anymore. There's that feeling of pressure of I get a text from my coworker or my boss or, one of my staff members at 7 or 8 p.m. at night, and they have whatever the problem is of the day. And then there's that feeling like, oh my gosh, now, their lack of planning or their, emergency becomes my problem. But we can just say, let them. You can set that
Mm-hmm.
boundary and say, like you were saying earlier, not answering that text, not responding to that email, and just kind
Mm-hmm.
of letting it play out.
Yeah, because it's like here's how I see it with, for example, the text message. If you always answer somebody's text message, they're always going to think in the back of their mind, hey, if I don't have nobody else to text or nobody else to call, this person's going to pick up the phone automatically each and every time. And I feel like when you receive that text message, sometimes you just need a moment to breathe. You need to have, like you said, set that boundary, and not everybody don't know how to do the tools, which I felt like in this book it did give like a identify kind of what to set the boundaries around certain tools in this book, which I really enjoyed. I enjoyed the book from top to bottom, to be honest, because
Yeah.
when I heard about the alarm tool that she did, I was like, is this even possible? And I tried it again. I failed the mission. Abort the mission. I failed it. But I want to get into a little bit about the challenges and real life practices. And it sounds simple is what I was trying to say. And I know it's not easy for everybody. So what do you think make it so hard to let them in the moment?
Yeah, I think it's just all the pressures and all the expectations that we put on ourselves. And some of that is, I talk to my clients a lot about um our subconscious patterns, things that we've learned as kids growing up. And you don't even realize that, like our brains are like a supercomputer, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if we always felt growing up or put on ourselves that pressure and that expectation to, always achieve, to always be the protector, to always be the problem solver, then, when those situations arise, like that's our automatic subconscious programming is to jump in and fix the situation, to solve the situation, to
Mm-hmm.
control the situation. And so, like you were saying earlier, it truly is slowing down and having to rewire your brain to say, I don't always have to be in control. I don't always have to control the situation. I don't always
Mm-hmm.
have to be the fixer. I don't always have to be the problem solver. Like other people are capable of figuring this out too. And I'm going to take a deep breath and let them live their life, let them do their thing, let them be them so that I can take that power back for me.
Yeah, and that's something where that has been my biggest challenge, is setting boundaries a little bit more. Sometimes I want to think that my friends understand my boundaries, because sometimes I think that yes, they understand my boundaries and I let them be known about my boundaries. But then again, sometimes those boundaries are still crossed, when you're setting
Mhm.
them in friendships. and in work. Even at work, you have PTO, for example, and they give you this certain limit in PTO, but you can't use all your PTO at once, because then if you have an emergency or you have a situation, what are you going to do? You have to use that PTO. And I feel a lot of companies now are being so hard stern on the expectation of the 9 to 5. You got to just work, but you shouldn't work to be tired at the end of the day. I mean, you got to have some type of energy left. And like, for example, where I'm working at, I had a coworker specifically say, "Hey, everybody looks tired. Are you guys tired?" Of course, you know we're all tired. We just did a full 8 hour shift and we're looking at computers, and computers are draining. And sometimes I just be like, just let us just chill. Can we not talk for 45 minutes and just have a moment of peace and quiet and just kind of rewire ourselves to wind down before our shift is ending? And I want to
Yeah.
ask you, did you want to say something?
No, I was just agreeing with what you were saying.
Okay, because I didn't want to cut you off or
I've been
anything.
there. I can empathize with that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, like, how do you personally remind yourself to shift into the mindset of instant, instead of reacting on certain situations?
Yeah. So I think that, you know, one, I think you really hit a big point with the work-life balance and the 9 to 5 and the PTO, because that's a lot. And, you know, we hit a point, and this is where I really decided to go out on my own and do my own business, was because even when you work for organizations that promote that work life balance, there is so much fitting your life in around your work. You
Mm-hmm.
know, there is, you know, you're asking permission to be able to leave for an hour in the middle of the day to maybe go to, I don't know, a student of the month event or to volunteer at your child's school. Like, you've got to schedule that around your
Mm-hmm.
work. And so while, you know, we should be working to support our life and our lifestyle, you can really get caught up in this place where your lifestyle is just getting fit in around your work, and that work becomes the primary. And we're not meant to live like that for you know, and be so intensive for such long periods of time. And so when you're at work and when something comes up in the middle of the day, and, you know, that whatever it is, you know, last minute project, something maybe that has, now that you feel like I need to jump in and I need to fix this, or I need to jump in and somehow control the situation, whatever that might look
Mm-hmm.
like, you know, the first thing that I tell clients to do is you've got to pause for a minute, take a couple deep breaths, because first of all, your system's getting dysregulated. So the
Mm-hmm.
first thing you've got to do is re-regulate your system, right? You have that stress
Right.
response. And this day and age, you know, like, our stress response was built like in caveman time. So when something stressful happens, we have this like fight or flight response, right? Fight, flight, or freeze. And we may not be in a life or death situation, but our body is reacting and we're having that
Mm-hmm.
acute stress response. Like, we could be in a life or death situation. And so where that ties into the lesson theory is, if you're able to take a few deep breaths, you're able to let your system re-regulate. Other great ways to get regulated are to take a walk, take a brief walk, get some sunshine, get some light, have some water, things to nourish our body and our system. And if we can do that just for a few minutes, and then shift to thinking, okay, what is this really about? And what if I just let this happen? Or what if, you know, I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
let them make the situation the way it is. No, now it's up to me to figure out how I'm going to respond. And just having that little bit of a break or a shift in what your natural response will be can be enough of an interruption to kind of calm you down and help you be more clear about what that response is. And then overall, you know, that, especially if that's practice over time, you'll start to see that being able to reduce your stress response in those kind of situations. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. And another thing is that I thought that was pretty cool with the let them theory is she did talk about a little bit about protecting your peace.
Yeah.
And so
Yes.
that for me is something I am transitioning to, where I want to set the boundaries, but still be able to please other people, but also protecting my peace, where I don't react to every reaction has an action to it. And I don't want to be able to react to things so instantly anymore, and to react them with a plan and a purpose versus reacting with that action that could cause something that could be changing not only to me, but it can also change the environment or others around me. And so right now, what I'm dealing with is with work, I'm at the point where my daughter tells me a lot of times is she misses me and she wants to hang out with me. But I have to let her know, like, hey, you can't, work with me right now because mommy's at work and you can't be loud. So I'm working with that transition because I'm trying to balance of protecting that peace and that workload, but also protecting where my daughter is able to say how she really feels in her instance. And so I want to talk about some takeaways or encouragement right now, because if someone is listening and feeling drained by trying to manage other people's opinions, or if there's a friendship that they're being affected by, or even drama that's within work or family, what's one piece of advice you would share with them to start embracing this wonderful book, The Let Them Theory?
Yeah. So I think it's just slowing down, and it is recognizing that it's okay. It's okay to have the reaction that you have to a situation. It's okay to be stressed. It's okay for those responses to come up, because that happens naturally. And when we try to tell ourselves or feel like, oh, I shouldn't have this response, I shouldn't have this visceral response to this situation, that can impact us too. So the other side of let them is let me. And so,
Mm.
as Mel says in her book, as we
Mm-hmm.
say, I'm going to let them do this, do their thing, but I can also let me respond how I need to respond to keep my peace. And so some of that is setting the boundaries. Some of that is, like, I think one example she gives in the book is maybe taking her dog on a walk. I'm trying to remember. It's
I'm about to
um
find one.
taking her dog on the walk.
I'm going to find one.
Yeah. Yeah. I think she had her dog in a dog park, and
Mm-hmm.
somebody's dog, like, took a number two, and they didn't clean it up. And like she was really upset about that. She had to say, I'm gonna let them, you know, do their thing. But then she
Mm-hmm.
also had to say, let me, and I'm gonna let me respond how I need to respond in this situation, because that's not okay. And I think she ended up and said something to the other dog owners
Mm-hmm.
about, hey, you need to clean up your dog's mess. And so by saying let them, it's not giving people a hall pass to act badly, or to, be, for lack of a better word, for being abusive of you, or to step on your toes, because there's the other piece where you have to be able to let you hold those boundaries to keep your peace.
Yeah, because one of the chapters that I liked in the book that I'm looking at again that stuck out to me was the chapter 4, where she talks about let them stress you out. And she talks about how what the let them theory teaches you about protecting your energy, just like we were talking about earlier about protecting your peace, where she was talking about focusing on the problem, the truth, and solution. And with the solution, what identified with the chapter 4 that I liked was she said, using the let them theory, you protect yourself from the stress of other people have been causing you. Your power is in controlling your response in other people's behavior, and to annoy the situation into the emotions that you feel. She stated, when you say let them, you made a decision not to allow other people's behavior stress you out or bother you. When you say let them, you reset the stress response and take responsibility on how you respond. And so she says it's time to reclaim all the time and energy for what matters most to you. And I liked about that chapter because you can let a million things stress you out, but again, if you let them get that reaction on how that action brings that reaction to you, you just got to let them and not have that response, which is why I
Yeah.
chose that chapter 4 in the book. And so before we wrap up, I want to do a takeaway because at the end of the day, the let them theory is about freedom and letting people be who they are intentionally and giving the space about who you are without the guilt or resentment. And so I know we talked about a little bit about your business, and I want to get into that a little bit more before we close and wrap up today.
Yeah. So I think that ties in nicely. So, I was telling you there was like three main takeaways I got from the book: letting people be who they are, letting people react how they're going to react. And the third one is what I feel like we've just been talking about, is let people live their life so that you can live yours, so that you can, let yourself
Mm-hmm.
determine how you're going to react. And
Mm-hmm.
so that was really, a shift in my mindset as I started my own business. And I had a lot of fears about what was going to happen, what people were going to think about me making this change and leaving the traditional 9 to 5 to do my own thing. But at the end of the day, I've got to do what's going to protect my peace and my family's peace. And I have a passion to help other women similar to me,
Mm-hmm.
moms, leaders, to really figure out their goals, get past that feeling of stuck and overwhelmed, to truly create a life they're going to love, to be able to reclaim their time, reclaim their peace. So that's what I do now. I work one-on-one with clients and really help them get clear on where they're at, where they
Mm-hmm.
want to be in their life, and work together and partner with them to build a bridge to get there.
And I love it. And by the way, our session was very, very amazing. And I took a lot of takeaways from it. So um, I do want to thank you, Lindsay, for joining and sharing your heart today with this conversation. I know so many moms, or even moms that aren't moms, whether you're a dog mom or a cat mom, are listening and going to feel a little bit lighter with the conversation that we had today. So I want to give you the chance to tell listeners where they can find and connect in reference to your business, which is amazing. So tell them where they can find you.
Yeah, so you can find me on Facebook. I have a Facebook group, Elevate 365. And then you can also find me on my website, which is elevate365-coaching.com.
Yay! All right, guys. Well, if today's episode resonated with you about the Let Them theory, again, this book here, you guys, I'm telling you, if you don't follow this book on Audible or get this book on Walmart or Target, or even check out the TED Talks on TikTok as well about this Let Them theory, you're in for a good treat. Please subscribe to this conversation, share this episode with a friend, and leave a review. I'll love to hear how you applied the Let Them theory in your own life. Until next time, stay balanced and take care of yourself. Bye, guys.